Today I'll be talking about the concept of framing, but within a sociological context. It's a concept that has a lot of history across several disciplines, particularly in communications. But a lot of research has looked at this concept sociologically as well, and specifically as it relates to social movements. So framing is more or less the story we tell. The story about some issue, and not just the details or content of the story, but how we tell it. So while this sounds like a very subjective concept, research has looked very carefully at the origins of frames and specifically the sources by which we arrive at various interpretations of different social issues. And those sources can be media, friends, teachers, politicians, coworkers, and so on. The research, though, does not look at people as adopting these frames in some kind of passive or robotic way. In fact, people often select between competing frames, and they extend these frames in ways that are designed to convince or persuade other people about that story. Analysts pay particular attention to what are called. And finally, another concept that's been explored in sociological terms is quiescence, which can briefly be described as inaction. In some cases, that inaction arises even in the face of what others see as very clear injustice or inequity, maybe danger, threat. And so a lot of sociologists have wondered why why some people would remain quiescent. Is it because they genuinely don't care about whatever that issue is that's at hand? More often than not, inaction's been explained not by apathy or lack of concern, but instead it's been attributed to perhaps people having more pressing situations that they deem more dangerous or more threatening or more unjust. Sometimes it has been attributed to people being concerned about the consequences if they were to engage in action, maybe retribution from friends or employers. And then at other times, inaction has been explained by a lack of understanding. Perhaps the threat cues are ambiguous or lack clarity. And so as we look at well-being, certainly one of the questions for me will be how quiescence might come into play in terms of inaction that characterizes some. But regardless of whether they're active or inactive, certainly another area that's going to be heavily focused on is the role that framing plays. And not just in terms of how residents frame their sense of well-being, and not just how they frame their views toward socio-technical changes, but also perhaps the role that official frames play and the degree to which those frames might resonate or not resonate for that matter.